Thank you so much, Kim,
Oh, it's all
for
right.
talking with me today.
Oh, yeah. No, it's good. It's because I always look forward to my permaculture meetings. So,
What does permaculture do for you?
well, I suppose in a way, because my family are Buddhists, and in a way, it kind of aligns with Buddhism anyway, in terms of the principles and the concepts.
Lovely.
And it was just lovely to actually finally go to permaculture and realize there's a whole lot of people who are aligned with what I align with, which is to protect nature, work with nature, and really rewild my garden. I mean, I've always never been super structured with my garden, grow, and I get plants that are edible that grow outside areas. I just leave them alone. So, and that aligned with permaculture too, because that's always really what I've done. I've been a doctor for 35 years now. We're actually about to have our 35-year reunion from Sydney University Medical School. So health is not, can't be seen in isolation because health is impacted by all the systems around health. And the way that I approach health is the way a lot of my friends who are doctors approach health as well. So you look at the core of health is the biological determinants of health. So look, if I see a person, I'd ask them what their family history is, whether there's any vascular disease, whether there's anxiety, depression, diabetes, cancers. Then I look at their health in terms of what they currently have, how they live. Then I also actually look at the social determinants. So, because the social determinants of health are super, super important. And my mother's a social worker. So, being really cognizant of social determinants is really important. So, where people are born, where they live, where they go to school, where they work, where they die. And really, how a person is supported with this framework determines how well they recover from any sort of mental or physical illness.
Mm.
And also, then I look at the commercial determinants of health. So, the commercial determinants of health are really the tobacco industry, the alcohol industry, the gambling industry, the processed food industry, and the fossil fuel industry, because all these industries are powerful industries. They have deep pockets, large marketing teams who don't consider the health of the population. So I ask about whether people actually smoke, drink, gamble, and how much processed food, because processed food is such a big problem. Also, fossil fuels. And you think of fossil fuels, do they have gas at home inside the house for their cooktop? Do they have it for heating? So those things are really important because we know that with indoor gas, it can actually cause asthma in kids and sensitize them for house dust mite. And little things like not to idle near school drop off and pick up because their kids will be sucking in all that air pollution as well. And then you look at the environmental determinants of health, which is clean air, water, healthy soils, stable climate, and a healthy ecosystem. So you look at where they live. Do they have a space for walking in nature? Do they have a garden? When I see a patient, to look at all these determinants of health, and it is a long consult, because if you don't understand how people live, you can't actually look after them effectively.
So, how can people live well?
Now, people can live well. If I look at the whole structure, they have to have somewhere safe to stay. So their home, they can adequately keep warm when it's cold and keep it cool when it's hot within their house. Do they have people around them to support them and help them? Do they have access to fresh food? And do they have the skills to process fresh food?
Mm.
Do they have access? Because fresh food, unless you grow it or have the enough sort of financial resources to buy it, is more expensive than highly processed food. And then it's really how much they move during the day. A lot of people are quite sedentary, so it's to get people to be what I call behaviorally activate, and how they sleep. I do always ask about whether that people are tired during the day and determine why they're tired, because it could be due to all those things I've discussed, and how much energy they have. Do they have something that brings them joy, whether they have a hobby? Because you find that people who don't have time for a hobby usually don't function as well. Having people thrive and not just try to stay alive or just live without having the joys that can be potentially in that life, from really the simple things that's in life on a day-to-day basis.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I mean, I've been in systems advocacy for the last 10 years. So, because it can feel quite overwhelming when you realize there's the systems problems that actually impact on health. So the things like people really need to see how they heat and cool their house, whether they've got a gas cooktop. If with my patients for a gas cooktop, who can afford to change to an electric cooktop, I do give them a pamphlet to actually navigate in New South Wales how to do this. If people can't afford to change their gas cooktop, but they don't want to use gas, they can get the gas turned off and buy, I do get people to buy the portable inductions because they work pretty well. Or people, if they want to continue using gas, to have a really good ventilation system so that they're not breathing in, because it's like it's combusting a fossil fuel on your cooktop. And so because besides it's a big sort of soup of different solid particles and what we call particulate matter and also aerosol particles. And so they can make people with respiratory diseases and heart diseases worse as well. So, and the trouble with the gas cooktops is they also emit the pollutants even when the gas stove is off. And then with heating and cooling, it's the cheapest way to heat and cool now is to really use a reverse cycle air conditioner. So to see whether they can afford, and they're kind of are semi-affordable. In some places there is a rebate, not in New South Wales at the moment, but to look at that. And so, and with parents, because there is a scheme called Idle Off, which was started by Claire Walter, who looks at air. She's a specialist in the air pollution area. So if we can get people not to idle near children, near groups of people, to the Idle Off programs to discourage parents from sitting in rows, have kids and continue idling while kids are waiting for their parents. So either switch the cars off or park further away and grab their children. So Idle Off is a program that we're running through schools, and you can have a look at it. They've got a really good website so that we can, it's the understanding of air pollution and its harm is really important. And we can start off with Idle Off so we don't expose children, because children are smaller in stature, they breathe more rapidly, and so they actually suck in more air pollution, little kids, and they're not that high above where the tailpipe of the car. So kids are more impacted by pollution. So yeah, it's the Idle Off is a good program. And in terms of systems advocacy, like I do encourage my patients, like parents, if they want to actually do some systems advocacy, to join Parents for Climate. There's about 40,000 members now of Parents for Climate in Australia. It started 4 years ago. And there are local groups like Permaculture, because Permaculture really looks at ways of, Permaculture actually helps people be cognizant of the things they can do in terms of every single process, the food, what you wear, what you do in your house, that you don't have to buy everything, that you can share. So like we actually have our sort of, we go to Permaculture Western Sydney, but we also have our Permie pods. So the Permie pods, I have my team come here and help me with my garden, because some of my trees require a chainsaw for pruning, so that I'm not planning to buy a chainsaw, because we actually regularly have sort of blitzes in our garden, so we help each other. And really, if there are so many groups now, because I mean fossil fuels are a major problem, and we can't have new fossil fuels, and renewable energy is so cheap, so it really requires education within our communities as well. Because not everyone completely understands this, and there's so much disinformation at the moment around, and it's really incumbent on, look, I encourage all my doctor friends, I'm in Doctors for the Environment that started in 2003. So we have quite a lot of active members. So we actually do multiple things, including trying to insert climate change into the medical curriculum in all the universities. We actually have a sustainability team that looks at emissions from they're really the hospital sector, because 7% of emissions in Australia are from the healthcare sector. And not many people know this. And yep. And then we actually have sort of an ethical investment arms where we actually see banks and superannuation companies about their investments in fossil fuels, and if they have investments in fossil fuels, what they can do regarding internal lobbying when they go to AGMs and board meetings, because if they, like a lot of the 4 major banks own a lot of fossil fuel shares. And so to see what they can do to internally advocate within those companies, it is shareholder activism. So some of our members have bought, in our ethical investment group, have bought shares in Woodside, so we can actually go to the AGMs and vote. So like it's kind of thinking of, instead of divesting, to buy the shares so that you have power within those fossil fuel companies. The shareholders, like if you can get enough shareholders with any sort of when they have any sort of resolution, to be there to vote at, well, even change the board members. So that has happened with some of the fossil fuel companies, if you have a powerful enough shareholder activism within that company. And the other thing we do is air pollution. So I'm in the air pollution group. So it is really educating the public and policymakers about air pollution, and to support. We work with the Asthma Council, Asthma Foundation, Thoracic Society, the College of General Practice, and the College of Physicians in the area of air pollution. And we also have a biodiversity group within Doctors for the Environment. So the EPBC, we did a submission for that, but we continue lobbying for every single forest that's going to be cut down, because like the loss of biodiversity in Australia is terrible. And so we do work with other groups. Doctors for Environment did a research project with World Wildlife Fund, and this was to do with biodiversity. So you can find that on our website. So we've got pretty much all what we do on our website for Doctors for the Environment.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me about that.
Yeah.
What's your view on air pollution from wood in homes for heating and cooking?
So, it is like, I've been advocating, a lot of people have been advocating this area for a long time. And the difficulty is that the pollution from wood smoke, actually, there are people die from pollution from wood smoke. My experience with it is that when I do house calls in Vineyard, which is because I work in Riverstone, and Vineyard, you can't see the road in front of you because of the wood smoke during winter. And I know my patients who have asthma are just terrible during that time. So it is difficult, because it is an equity issue. If you're in a country in an open area where there's no houses around you, and you can't afford to put a reverse cycle air conditioner in, then you have the space to do it, because by the time it gets to other houses, it's diluted. But if you're in an urban area, having a wood-fired heater is and like most of the ones in Australia aren't efficient enough to basically to actually not emit dangerous air pollution.
Right.
So if you look at but politicians have don't have the courage to deal with this effectively, because in Victoria for a while there was a policy where if you were selling a house with a wood heater, you would take the wood heater out before you sold the house, and that was going for about 5 years, and then that was reversed, because it's the cheapest way to heat and cool a house in urban areas is to have a reverse cycle air conditioner, because the technology for the heat pumps has advanced so much that is really very cheap to run. So there's so much evidence in terms of the harm, but it's really, you need to have the conversation. Like with anything, if you're going to change a policy, people need to understand the reasons. Otherwise, people just think that an authoritarian government is imposing on your rights to choose to do something. But most people, are pretty altruistic. They do care about their community. So if people understand, they would understand why. I mean, the other job I do is I'm chair of Australian Asians for Climate Solutions. And where we're working on is on indoor gas cooktops. So we're trying to encourage people to understand that induction is safer because of the air pollution, but because of just the simple thing, like my mum had a gas cooktop that one day she turned on and all 4 cooktops came on, and it's just dangerous.
Mhm.
So after that, we changed to induction. So I wasn't afraid she was going to burn herself with an induction cooktop. So it's looking at safety. Like also, I mean, if you look at any hotel or apartments that have a kitchen, they all have induction because it's safer.
Mm. And it's energy efficient too, because
Yeah, that's right.
we've just not even using our electric cooktop anymore. Completely just put the large induction stove to the
Yeah,
side, and we're using that all the time. It's
yeah,
faster,
yeah,
and you can get a series of small ones to even be to heat the bain-maries in
yeah,
the hotels.
yeah,
You just have those small ones underneath all the different offerings.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's quite cheap. It's only $100.
yeah,
You've got a fast cooker.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess
yeah.
the only thing is if they had a pacemaker or something.
Okay, with pacemakers, um, there is actually no good studies, but if you're the current guidelines are if you are not that near the pacemaker, okay, because like everyone has phones next to them, so like if you're not, and you're flying here, then it's unlikely there'll be a problem.
Right.
So, but we're working on at the moment. I've got a bunch of my friends who are cardiologists working on a paper for that. But the bulk of people, and having said that, the bulk of people don't have pacemakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like there's more people with asthma, respiratory problems than there are people with pacemakers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it's still an important thing because it's what people look at when they look at buying an induction cooktop.
Yeah, they're just looking at the danger signs,
Mm.
and that's the only thing that I've
Yeah,
seen so far. Mentioning a pace.
yeah, because I've said that they need to put on when they sell gas cooktops on us in the shops. They need to put gas is a health hazard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
So
make it
like
fair.
yeah. So I mean it's in the last few years you see that most of the places like Winnings is a major department, electrical department and small goods store, and they've got almost half. I went to Good Guys the other day to buy something, and they also had half gas and induction. It's cheaper for even for apartment blocks, if they put up their apartment blocks to have induction put into every apartment. But
Yeah.
you actually people have to understand why.
And
Yeah,
the chefs were reluctant because they've had to change some of their techniques. I've
yeah.
noticed if you're
So
working with a wok, you have to.
yeah. So there is the Global Cook Safe coalition, which is global chefs who are quite prominent chefs. Neil Perry's on this team, who cook with induction in their professional kitchens.
Okay.
So and because I'm working with them because I do cooking demonstrations.
Yeah.
So I've done one for Inner West Council because they've actually within the council area they've actually there's no new bills with gas. So they're trying to show their residents how induction works. So I did a workshop for them. I've done a workshop for I did a workshop for Smart Energy Council at MLC Junior School. So I cooked dumplings on induction cooktop, and that went super well because we're the only source of food, which wasn't great for that conference. And I'm doing another one for Eastwood for the Chinese community. So it's a very large community of Chinese people who have been, it's an ongoing community for the last 20 years. So I'm working with the Cook Safe Coalition, my group, which is Australian Asians for Climate Solutions, plus Parents for Climate. And we're putting on, we're going to do dumplings and fried rice on the induction cooktop for about 50 to 100 older Chinese people.
Wow.
So that's going to be at the end of August, which is going to be fun. So it's to show people that this is doable on something that's safe.
Mm.
Because unless people see what can be done, they won't think about it.
No.
Yeah.
But in this case, they get to hear what you're saying,
Yeah.
taste it, see it
Yeah.
happening. It's really a very convincing way.
Oh, it is, because like the first workshop I did for the Inner West Council, I did char kway teow, which is a Nonya dish. Because my cultural background is Nonya, which is Chinese, Indian, and Malay food. So that's char kway teow is actually a really well-known dish. So and then they could see that I could fry it, and they could see everything sizzling. That everything was like you could cook char kway teow on an induction cooktop. And so like after I cooked, everyone examined the back of my wok, because I've actually got a professional wok, because when I changed over, my old wok didn't work anymore. So I bought the best wok I could afford. And it's huge. So it's yeah, and basically because the gas companies are just so powerful, they're commercial determinant of health. They've been sort of hoodwinking the whole population how safe natural gas is, when it's not natural gas, it's a fossil fuel gas. So once the population understands, because I advocate on the larger system stuff about fossil fuels as well, because Doctors for the Environment have a No New Fossil Fuels campaign, and we're working with Comms Declare. So Comms Declare is advertising, people working in the advertising world, they started that Comms Declare, a woman called Belinda Noble. So we're working with them, and we're having a day. I don't think I'm going, because I can't take too much time off work, but having a day in Parliament House where we've got Jed Carney, who's actually working with us, who's she's the minister assisting Mark Butler here in the portfolio of aged care and health. I think that's the portfolio. Yeah. So I mean, there's stuff happening everywhere, because I think there's so many people who understand it's a crisis and it's an emergency. So we just need to mobilize the people who understand to get off their butt and do something. And then there are a significant group of people who don't know, but once they knew, they understand, because like it's because I do come across people, because I purposely go to and speak to groups of people who are climate naive, and who don't actually encounter climate, because they don't understand the things changing around them due to climate change. And there are people who just don't know.
How do you start that conversation with someone who doesn't know?
And it depends on, because I had a conversation, because I went to the Australian Chinese Historical Society talk on Tuesday night, because being in Australian Asians for Climate Solutions, we try to go to every other group that we can. And the person who was speaking is actually a friend of my friend who went with me, because I work with one of my best friends is an emergency physician, and she's also in Asian Australians for Climate Solutions and Doctors for the Environment, but she's also head of disaster for the Australian College of Emergency Medicine. So we do go, because within the Asian community, doctors are still held in high regard. So if it's in a way, it's easier for me to start the conversation, because I come from a place where my opinion is valued. So yeah. I've joined my local mums group, which is the Hills Socialites. I speak on community radio, because I'm a permaculture, people engage with me more freely, because I have chickens and plants. So I think people appreciate that now, even if they don't understand climate change. They appreciate when they I do give my eggs around a little bit freely, so they understand that home produce is really important. And I do share a lot of my stuff on social media, in terms of like what I cook with my tomatoes, eggs, and spinach. So I share my breakfast a lot, so people can see what is possible. Because until they see I invite a lot of people to my garden, because they can see what can be done if you just have. Because when I did a lot of this stuff, I just did it from YouTube videos before I joined my permaculture group. But it's just what is potentially possible. even like I have my tea each day is lemon myrtle and lemongrass. That's because I'm trying to wean myself off coffee. It's just I show it to people and they say, oh my God, it smells so nice. Just to have create your own tea from your own garden. And because I say, well, if once you establish this, it's cheap. Instead of buying bags of drinks, you are actually getting stuff from your garden.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Because really just find anyone who will listen. Our permaculture group, we Greg Meyer also works with Parramatta Council, so he's got runs the Grow Your Own Food program. And I think during COVID, people were more aware of how they can actually do their own stuff because of the supply chains were so obviously lacking. I think the community is come along a long way. Don't you think when you look at people that
and I think about that one particular woman who was resistant, she
Yeah.
actually is proud that she can grow some herbs now.
Yeah.
Certainly been a shift after the big fires. I think people
Yeah.
are frightened. They
Yeah.
haven't forgotten. And now we're looking at Europe being very hot.
Yeah.
We're actually needing to ask ourselves, how does a person who's in a rental survive?
Yeah. So there is organisation called Better Homes for Renters. It's run by Joel Dignam. And so they've actually moved the Victorian government in terms of looking at ways of rating the thermal efficiency of rental homes. They've also, in New South Wales, we haven't got so far yet. There's also, because there's also Sydney Community Alliance. Oh God, I should say, I'm a part of this group. And what they do is they work with core communities and people living in poverty to help them be more literate about their energy bill. This is people who live in rental properties, so that they know when the bill comes, how they can actually look at it and see what is actually causing a high bill in terms of appliances and how to, because the communities we work with don't necessarily have English as their first language.
Yeah.
And so we're working with Energy Consumers Australia and Solar Citizens as well. So I'm part of this group. I can never get to the meetings because I'm so busy with everything else I do. But it's a really, really important group. So they're up, and there's also, there's Voices of Power, which is have you heard of Sydney Alliance? So Sydney Alliance has started by Amanda Tattersall. So it is an umbrella group for a whole bunch of other groups. And so there's Sydney, the Voices of Power, which is a group of mainly young people who are advocating for renewable energy, solar panels and thermal efficiencies in rental areas and people living in poverty so that they can reduce their power bills. So the advocacy has been going for a long time, and they're very organized and they're very clear with messaging. And at the moment, there's also Renew Australia, which is, I think that's it. We're having a meeting next Tuesday where we've got an alliance of a bulk of different groups, including Solar Citizens, Sweltering Cities. So Sweltering Cities is an organisation started by my really dear friend Emma Bacon. So Emma saw that there was a lack of voices from people impacted by heat waves. And so they really focus on bus stops and how you need to have safe bus stops for people to wait, because usually those more disadvantaged people are more likely to catch buses. So if you look at Sweltering Cities, they've got a great website.
Great.
And so a lot of our groups so there's a lot of groups that are working together in alliances, which wasn't happening 10 years ago. So and because people beaver along in their little silos with their advocacy, but now there is a network of people working together, which is a great thing. Yeah. So there's tons of stuff happening. And also, you know what? It's community, isn't it? I think, it's not just like every time we have like any local Permie pod, it's just sitting down eating with other people. And that's what's great about permaculture. It's creating the community of people who understand and care.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.